Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're going to be cracking open a book that you sent over
Oh,
called How to Use Your Mind, A Lycology of Study.
right.
It's by Harry D. Kitson.
Uh-huh.
And get this, it was published way back in 1921.
Wow.
So we are on a mission to see if his advice on study habits has stood the test of time.
You know, it's fascinating how much of what Kitson wrote still resonates today.
Yeah.
Like, for example, he starts by talking about the shock that a lot of college freshmen experience.
Right.
Imagine going from the structured world of high school to the sudden freedom and demands of college courses.
It's a whole different ball game, right?
Yeah.
You're suddenly expected to manage your own time.
Right.
Take notes effectively from rapid-fire lectures,
Yep.
and handle a much heavier reading load.
Yeah.
I remember feeling totally overwhelmed my first semester.
Kitson really nails that feeling.
Yeah.
And he doesn't just describe the problem, he offers solutions.
Okay.
One of the big ones is his system for effective note-taking. And it's not about like scribbling down every word.
Oh, I've tried that, and it's a recipe for hand cramps and missed information.
Yeah.
So what does he recommend?
He advocates for a more structured approach,
Okay.
using a specific outline format.
Right.
It starts with Roman numerals
Right.
for main topics,
Mm-hmm.
then capital letters for subtopics,
Right.
Arabic numerals for supporting details, and so on.
Right.
It's all about creating this like visual hierarchy of information.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
It reminds me of the way a lot of note-taking apps work today, with
Yeah.
nested bullet points and different levels of headings.
Exactly. Kitson was really ahead of his time in that sense.
Wow.
But it's not just about the format, it's about the process.
Right.
He stresses active listening,
Okay.
focusing on capturing key concepts,
Uh-huh.
and organizing your notes in a way that makes them easy to review later.
So it's almost like creating a mental map of the lecture rather than just a transcript.
Yeah.
Do you think this outline system would work for someone who's more of a visual learner? Like someone who likes to draw diagrams and mind maps?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
And it kind of leads us to another one of Kitson's key insights,
Okay.
understanding your individual learning style.
Okay.
He talks about different sense avenues for absorbing information,
Right.
visual, auditory, and kinesthetic.
So if you're a visual learner,
Yeah.
you might benefit from creating diagrams and mind maps while listening to a lecture
Right.
instead of just relying on the traditional outline format.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And an auditory learner might prefer recording lectures and listening to them again,
Right.
maybe even talking themselves through the main points.
Okay.
Kitson's point is that you need to figure out what works best for you.
But no matter your learning style,
Yeah.
he's a big believer in repetition, right?
Yes.
What he calls overlearning,
He argues that going beyond simply knowing the material,
right?
pushing yourself to the point of mastery,
Yeah.
strengthens those neural pathways in your brain.
Okay.
He uses this fascinating analogy,
Yeah.
comparing nerve pathways to the formation of habits.
So the more you practice something,
Right.
the stronger the connection becomes in your brain,
Exactly.
making it easier to recall the information later.
Yes.
It's like building mental muscle memory.
Exactly. And this overlearning is especially important for combating memory fading.
Right. Which we all struggle with.
Yeah.
Speaking of memory, I remember that Kitson had some pretty insightful things to say about how it actually works.
Uh-huh.
He breaks it down into 4 stages: impression, retention, recall, and recognition.
And he has specific advice for improving each stage.
Okay.
For example, in the impression stage,
Yeah.
it's all about making that initial connection with the information.
Right.
He talks about choosing the right sense avenue
Yeah.
based on your learning style.
Okay.
But he also stresses the importance of creating vivid impressions.
You mean like not just passively reading the textbook,
Right.
but actively highlighting key points? Yeah.
Writing summaries in your own words, maybe even drawing little doodles in the margins to help you remember.
Exactly. It's about engaging as many senses as possible
Yeah.
and making the information personally meaningful.
Okay.
Then for the retention stage,
Right.
Kitson emphasizes the power of repetition and spaced learning.
So instead of cramming everything in at the last minute,
Right.
it's better to review the material regularly over a longer period of time.
Yes.
That way the information has a chance to really sink in.
Exactly.
Okay.
And he doesn't just tell us to repeat things mindlessly.
Right.
He distinguishes between rote memorization,
Uh-huh.
which is just repetition without understanding,
Okay.
and memorizing through logical associations.
I remember he gave that great example about remembering the date of the Chicago World's Fair
Yeah.
instead of trying to just brute force memorize the year.
Right.
He suggests connecting it to a fact you already know, the 400th anniversary of Columbus discovering America.
That's such a brilliant example.
It illustrates the power of linking new information to something already stored in your memory.
Uh-huh.
It's like creating a mental hook that makes it easier to retrieve the information later.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground already.
Yeah.
We've talked about the challenges of college, effective note-taking, the importance of repetition and overlearning,
Right.
and understanding different types of memory.
Yeah.
But Kitson doesn't stop there, does he?
He does not.
He goes on to explore a whole range of other study techniques, all rooted in a deep understanding of how the mind works.
Absolutely.
And one of the areas that really fascinated me was his take on attention and concentration.
Oh, yeah,
It's something we all struggle with,
for sure.
especially in today's world of constant distractions.
Yeah.
Let's dive into that next.
Okay.
I'm curious to hear how Kitson's advice on managing distractions holds up in the age of smartphones and social media.
Well, you might be surprised to find that his insights are more relevant than ever. Let's start with his visual analogy of the mental field.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
Yeah.
Tell me more.
Kitson describes the mental field as like a circle,
Okay.
like you might picture in your mind's eye.
Right.
At the center is the focal object,
Okay.
the thing you're trying to concentrate on.
Uh-huh.
But then all around the edges,
Yeah.
in the periphery,
Right.
are these marginal objects.
Okay.
Those represent all the distractions vying for your attention.
Okay. I can already see where he's going with this.
Yeah.
It's like trying to study for a big exam
Mm-hmm.
while your phone is buzzing with notifications.
Right.
Your roommate is blasting music.
Yeah.
And you're worrying about a million other things.
Exactly.
Those are the marginal objects pulling at your focus.
And Kitson was writing long before smartphones and the internet,
Right.
but his insights are spot on.
Wow.
He breaks distractions down into two main categories,
Okay.
internal and external.
Okay.
Internal distractions are those thoughts, worries, daydreams, all the mental chatter that can derail your focus.
Yeah.
External distractions are the things in your environment.
Right.
Noise,
Right.
visual clutter, uncomfortable temperature, you name it.
Okay, so what's the antidote to this constant attention grabbing? Is it just a matter of willpower? Like forcing yourself to focus harder?
Kitson would argue that willpower alone isn't enough.
Okay.
He emphasizes the importance of strategically managing both internal and external distractions.
Okay.
For the external stuff,
Yeah.
it's about creating a conducive study environment.
That makes sense. Finding a quiet space,
Right.
turning off notifications, maybe using noise-canceling headphones if you need to.
Yeah.
It's about minimizing the things that compete for your attention.
Precisely.
Okay.
But he goes beyond just the physical environment.
Right.
He also talks about the importance of managing those internal distractions,
Right.
those pesky thoughts that can pull you away from your studies.
This is where it gets really interesting to me because those internal distractions can feel so much harder to control.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And Kitson doesn't dismiss those challenges.
Okay.
He acknowledges that it takes effort and practice to quiet the mental chatter.
Right.
He suggests techniques like focusing on your breath,
Okay.
almost like a mini meditation,
Yeah.
to help bring your attention back to the present moment.
So it's about cultivating a sense of mental discipline,
Yeah.
being able to gently guide your attention back to the task at hand when it starts to wander.
Exactly.
Okay.
And he also stresses the importance of taking breaks.
Breaks. Okay.
He suggests short 15-minute breaks
Uh-huh.
to get up,
Okay.
move around,
Yeah.
clear your head,
Right.
and come back refreshed.
That's something I'm definitely guilty of not doing enough.
Yeah.
I tend to get so caught up in what I'm working on
Right.
that I forget to take breaks.
Yeah.
But I know from experience that when I do,
Uh-huh.
I come back feeling so much more focused and energized.
It's like hitting the reset button for your brain.
Totally.
And speaking of mental energy,
Yeah.
Kitson had some fascinating things to say about the process of reasoning.
Okay.
It's not just about absorbing information,
Right.
but actually understanding it,
Mm-hmm.
applying it,
Yeah.
and drawing your own conclusions.
It's about moving beyond rote memorization to a deeper level of engagement with the material.
You got.
Okay.
And Kitson breaks down reasoning into 3 distinct stages.
Okay.
Recognizing the problem,
Uh-huh.
systematically searching for solutions,
Okay.
and making decisions based on evidence.
Right.
He emphasizes the importance of defining terms clearly
Okay.
and classifying ideas
Uh-huh.
to avoid fuzzy thinking.
So it's about bringing a sense of order and clarity to your thinking process. It
Exactly.
reminds me of that saying,
Yeah,
a problem well defined is half solved.
exactly.
Right.
And he doesn't just throw these concepts out there.
Okay.
He provides specific strategies for improving our reasoning skills. He talks about the importance of analyzing arguments,
Yeah.
identifying assumptions,
Uh-huh.
and evaluating evidence.
So it sounds like he's equipping us with the tools to become more critical thinkers, not just passive consumers of information.
That's precisely it.
Okay.
And this leads us to another one of Kitson's key insights, the importance of expression.
Expression.
He argues that expressing what we learn
Right.
is just as important as taking in the information in the first place.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
It's one thing to have information rattling around in your brain,
Right.
but it's another thing entirely to be able to articulate it, explain it to someone else, or use it to solve a problem.
He nails it.
Right.
And he's not just talking about writing essays or taking exams.
Okay.
He advocates for a variety of forms of expression,
Yeah.
including speaking,
Uh-huh.
writing,
Right.
and even drawing.
So it's about finding different ways to make the information your own, to process it, and make it meaningful.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He gives this fantastic example of a teacher
Yeah.
named Francis W. Parker,
Okay.
who used a familiar creek bed
Uh-huh.
to explain complex geographical concepts.
Interesting.
Instead of just lecturing about Niagara Falls or the Nile Delta,
Right.
he helped his students understand these formations
Yeah.
by connecting them to something they could see and experience in their own backyard.
That's such a powerful reminder that learning doesn't have to be dry and abstract.
Right.
There are so many creative ways to make it engaging and relatable.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And this ties in with another challenge that Kitson tackles: lack of interest.
Lack of interest.
He argues that most interests are not innate,
Okay.
but rather intensely artificial,
Interesting.
developed through experience and exposure.
Wait, so you're saying we're not necessarily born liking or disliking certain subjects?
That's Kitson's argument.
Wow.
He believes that we can actively shape our own interests
Okay.
by seeking out information, framing the new in terms of the old,
Okay.
and making connections to things we already find fascinating.
So it's not about forcing ourselves to like something we hate.
Right.
It's about finding ways to make it relevant and engaging,
Exactly.
to connect it to our existing knowledge and passions.
You got it.
Ah.
And this approach can be especially helpful when we encounter those inevitable plateaus in our learning journeys.
Oh, those periods where it feels like you're banging your head against a wall,
Yeah.
making no progress no matter how hard you try.
Kitson acknowledges those frustrating phases.
Okay.
He even uses a visual representation,
Yeah.
a language learning curve,
Mm-hmm.
to show how progress is often rapid at the beginning,
Right.
followed by periods of stagnation
Yeah.
and sometimes even regression.
I find that so reassuring.
Yeah.
It means those plateaus are normal,
Right.
not a sign that I'm doing something wrong or that I'm just not cut out for this.
Exactly.
Okay.
And Kitson offers some practical advice for overcoming these plateaus. He suggests changing study methods,
Right.
seeking help from others, and most importantly, persisting through the difficulty.
It's like those moments in exercise where you feel like you can't go on,
Yeah.
and then suddenly you hit that second wind
Uh-huh.
and find a burst of energy.
Right.
Speaking of which, didn't Kitson have something to say about mental second wind?
You have a great memory. He dedicated a whole chapter to that concept.
Wow.
He describes it as a state of heightened efficiency and renewed energy
Okay.
you can access after pushing through initial fatigue.
Okay, so we're not just talking about physical endurance,
Right.
but mental stamina as well.
Precisely.
Wow.
He draws parallels between the physical experience of second wind,
Yeah.
like runners hitting the wall,
Uh-huh.
then finding a new surge of energy,
Right.
and the mental experience of pushing past fatigue
Okay.
to unlock a deeper level of focus and productivity.
So he's suggesting that if we push past those initial feelings of mental fatigue, we might actually discover a new level of mental clarity and focus.
Exactly.
Wow.
And he even cites examples like Joan of Arc,
Okay.
who accomplished extraordinary feats through sheer willpower and mental endurance.
Wow. That's inspiring.
Yeah.
It makes me want to rethink my approach to studying. I tend to give in to fatigue pretty easily.
I think a lot of us do.
Yeah.
But Kitson's insights challenge us to reconsider our limits.
Right.
And he doesn't just romanticize mental exertion.
Okay.
He also provides a very grounded, scientific look at fatigue itself.
Uh-huh.
He talks about the accumulation of waste products in the nervous system
Right.
and the importance of proper rest and recovery.
So it's about finding that balance between pushing yourself and knowing when to take a break.
Absolutely.
Okay.
He even offers specific strategies for managing fatigue,
Okay.
like short breaks, light physical activity,
Right.
and avoiding mental overstimulation during rest periods.
So it's all about being intentional with your energy, both mental and physical.
You said it.
Okay.
And this holistic approach to studying is something that Kitson emphasizes throughout the book.
Right.
It's not just about cramming facts into your head.
Right.
It's about taking care of your whole self.
Yeah.
Mind, body, and spirit.
It sounds like he was ahead of his time in that sense.
Yeah.
It's like he anticipated a lot of the advice we hear today
Uh-huh.
about mindfulness,
Right.
self-care,
Yeah.
and the importance of taking a holistic approach to well-being.
Absolutely.
Wow.
And I think that's one of the reasons why his book has stood the test of time.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive.
Yeah, we have.
From note-taking and memory to attention, reasoning, and even mental second wind.
Right.
But there's one big topic we haven't touched on yet, exams.
Ah, yes. The source of so much anxiety and stress for students everywhere.
Right.
But don't worry, Kitson has some wisdom to share on that front as well.
Okay, let's dive in. I'm all ears.
So when it comes to exams,
Yeah.
Kitson's advice is refreshingly practical.
Okay.
He starts by just debunking the myth of cramming.
Right.
We've all been there,
Yeah.
pulling all-nighters, trying to stuff our brains with information at the last minute.
Yeah, it never really works, does it?
Nope.
You might manage to regurgitate some facts for the exam,
Right.
but it's gone from your memory like a week later.
Kitson knew that over 100 years ago.
Wow.
He was a big advocate for spaced learning.
Face learning.
Spreading your study efforts over time
Right.
allows for better retention and understanding.
So it's like building a solid foundation brick by brick rather than trying to erect a flimsy structure all at once.
Exactly.
Okay.
And he offers a ton of helpful tips for exam preparation.
Okay.
He suggests simulating exam conditions,
Right.
practicing active recall,
Uh-huh.
and managing your time effectively.
Simulating exam conditions sounds like a great idea.
Yeah,
It's like a dress rehearsal for the main event.
right.
You can practice retrieving information under pressure and get used to the time constraints.
He also emphasizes the importance of active recall.
Okay.
Instead of just passively reading your notes,
Right.
try to recall information from memory.
Okay.
You can use flashcards, quizzes, or even just explain concepts to yourself out loud.
That's a technique I've started using recently,
Yeah.
and it's made a huge difference.
Oh, wow.
It's amazing how much more you remember when you force yourself to retrieve information rather than just passively absorbing it.
Kitson was a firm believer in that active approach to learning.
And when it comes to the exam itself,
Uh-huh.
he has some interesting advice.
Okay.
He stresses the importance of staying active during the exam,
Yeah.
jotting down ideas,
Uh-huh.
and avoiding passive dreaming.
Right.
It's about taking control of the situation,
Yeah.
using all the tools and techniques we've learned to perform our best.
Right.
It reminds me of that saying, the best way to predict the future is to create it.
I love that.
Right.
And Kitson would definitely agree.
Yeah,
He believed that we have a lot more agency in our learning than we often realize.
it's true.
And speaking of agency,
Yeah.
he ends the book on a topic that's really resonated with me.
Okay.
The undeniable link between physical health and mental effectiveness.
It's something we've touched on throughout our deep dive.
Right.
He talks about eating, sleeping, and exercising, right? The classic advice we've all heard,
Yeah.
but maybe haven't always taken to heart.
He goes beyond just saying, eat your vegetables and get some sleep.
Okay.
He provides specific, actionable tips
Yeah.
for improving your physical health to support optimal mental performance.
Right.
For example.
Yeah.
He emphasizes regular nutritious meals,
Okay.
avoiding overeating,
Right.
and staying hydrated.
It makes sense.
Yeah.
It's hard to concentrate when you're running on fumes
Uh-huh.
or feeling sluggish from a heavy meal.
He also provides tips for creating a relaxing bedtime routine,
Okay.
managing distractions in the evening,
Yeah.
and maintaining a consistent sleep schedule.
It's all about good sleep hygiene.
Right.
Setting yourself up for restful nights.
Yeah.
So you can wake up feeling refreshed and ready to tackle the day.
And he doesn't forget about exercise.
Oh, right. Exercise.
He was a big advocate for regular physical activity,
Yeah.
even for brain workers.
It's like that saying, a sound mind in a sound body.
Right.
You need both to function at your best.
Kitson definitely believed in the power of that mind-body connection.
Yeah.
It's this holistic approach that acknowledges the interconnectedness of our physical and mental well-being.
We've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive.
I know, it's amazing.
How much practical wisdom is packed into this book from 1921?
Yeah.
It really does feel like Kitson was ahead of his time in many ways.
His insights into the psychology of study are timeless.
Yeah.
And he doesn't just throw information at us. He provides concrete strategies and techniques that we can actually apply to our own lives.
It's a reminder that effective study habits are grounded in a deep understanding of how our minds work, and that learning itself is a skill that can be honed and improved with practice and the right techniques.
Absolutely.
It's about becoming more intentional and skillful in our pursuit of knowledge.
Yeah.
And that's something we can all benefit from,
Right.
no matter what stage of life we're in or
Right.
what we're trying to learn.
Kitson's book is like a blueprint for maximizing our mental potential.
Yeah.
It's a reminder that we're not stuck with whatever learning habits we've developed.
Right.
We can actively shape our own minds and become more effective thinkers and learners.
That's a really empowering message.
Yeah.
And it's one that I think resonates deeply with the idea of this podcast.
Yeah.
Helping people dive deep into information
Mm-hmm.
and unlock its full potential.
Absolutely. So to wrap things up,
Yeah.
we'd love to hear from you, our listener. What are some of the key takeaways
Right.
that resonated with you from this deep dive?
Yeah.
What are some of Kitson's techniques that you're excited to try out?
And here's a final thought to ponder.
Okay.
If you could design your ideal study environment,
Yeah.
what would it look like? What elements would help you focus, stay energized,
Right.
and make the most of your study time?
Keep exploring and keep learning.
That's it for this deep dive into how to use your mind.
Thanks for joining us.
Until next time, happy studying.